Hello, adventurers. I'm Zed with Zedexis Gaming, and welcome to Final Fantasy Tips, Tricks, Guides, and Other Shenanigans with Zalcan. Say hi, Zalcan. Alright, so today we are going to talk about the HUD. Setting yourself up to have your game look like what you want it to look like. Yes, I know it's exciting. Yes, you need to calm down. Okay. First of all, I'm not going to tell you everything because that's not possible. There may be certain things that you end up having to, look up, or certain tricks, of course, that I don't know. This is one of those topics that goes a mile deep. But my HUD is what you call a hot mess. But what I'm attempting to do with my HUD is pretty much get every single button I can available and visible for me when I'm playing. This is not what your HUD looks like when you start. When you start, if you go under System and HUD Layout, you have four kind of like save spots. So saved under 1 is my current. Saved under 2, this is the default. This is what your HUD normally looks like when you start the game. So as you can see, you can have your HUD extremely clean, or you could have your HUD clutter up the screen like mine does. I'm going to show you the basics of how you do basically either. So first to get started, when we talk about your buttons down here, this is what's called a hotbar. I use a mouse and keyboard. So everything that I do is set up for that. But some people use controllers. For the controller setup, there's a different name for it, which is the buttons that go on the controller is called the crossbar. I won't be covering how to set up the crossbar because I don't use a controller, so I don't really know. I have the crossbar settings essentially turned off. I don't mess with that at all. But I will show you where that is when we get to those settings. The other thing is there's a kind of a little bit of a separate piece to this, and I'll cover this first, called the command panel. In one of the more recent patch cycles, Final Fantasy added into the game basically additional places for buttons. So if you go underneath your let's see, what is it? Hit P to open up your actions and traits. So you go down here, you go to extras. You have what's called the command panel. So this is where we're going to start. You can pull this button down to a bar and open up your command panel. You can put any button in the game you want on here. You can put mounts on here. You can put pets on here. I use the command panel for the buttons to change your class. So I have all of the classes in here. And then I've got one with a bunch of emotes on it. So you can have the button just for the command panel itself, or if you go into settings, you've got your settings for your command panel, and then you notice it's got command panel shortcuts. These are the shortcuts for each page. So if you hit OK, this is what I have on mine. So I have command panel page 1, command panel page 2, command panel page 3, and I, of course, know I have this organized like this is all of my crafters, this is all of my gatherers. So if I want to change to a crafting profession, I just hit 3, go to the crafting profession, hit the button. Now, of course, these buttons are drug down from your gear set lists. So if you have a gear set list, you just drag this button down and that's what switches to that gear set list. So that's the command panel. It's kind of, at this point, its own little separate thing. Like I said, basically what, we'll switch back to Bard. Basically what they did was essentially add in more HUD. So you can set those up. So now let's go to the next thing. So I'm just gonna, what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to go box by box and show what you have to do to make changes. So if you go back into HUD layout, you're going to be in the HUD layout a lot. So let's start with Hotbar 1. If you click on a hotbar, what you're going to do is it'll list the element here. You can actually switch what element is active here. Let's go to Hotbar 1, and we're going to hit UI element settings. This brings up basically 2 things that you can change, which is the size and the shape. So if we back out of this, if we go to settings 2, remember this is kind of the default. So I click on Hotbar 1, settings. So my settings for the other hotbar for my settings was at a size of 140%, 12 by 1. So if I hit save, and now I close this, so now I've changed this to look like what it looks like on mine. Okay, that's the lock and unlock button. All right. So these little the 2 bars down here are relatively simple to change. But now you're probably asking, where's all the other stuff come from? All right, so let's go back to System, HUD Layout. So let's look at 1. So let's look at, if Hotbar 1, Hotbar 2, Hotbar 3. So Hotbar 3 for me is over here on the left. If I click on Element Settings, it's a 3x4 and it's 120. It's 120. 120 and 3x4. So now we're going to switch to 2. And I have to find Hotbar 3. There's Hotbar 3. Now the first thing you notice is Hotbar 3 is invisible. If you look very closely, you'll see the text here is purple. Purple means that the hotbar is not active. It's on your settings screen, but it's not active in game. If you look down here at like Hotbar 2, you see the text is white. So that means the hotbar is active. So if you want to activate a hotbar, make sure it's selected and right click, and you'll notice the text now changed to white. Hit save. Anytime you do something, basically hit save. So now you see, now we have, these are the buttons that I have already on the bar in my other save. So So now we have the bar, but we still have it as the wrong size. So it's 100, and it's currently 12 by 1. So let's change it to 3 by 4. Change it to 120, and then we hit save. Now, when you're in that screen, you can't move it. But now that we're out of that screen, you can move it. And again, every time you move it, you have to, you want to hit save. Okay. So now it's basically over here. So let's close this and just see. Yep, this pretty much looks like what it looks like on my normal screen. So let's go back. Change to 1. And see, okay, so it's maybe a little bit lower, but pretty much I got what I've got. So you can go through and see how, I've moved everything around. And this is something that, this isn't going to take you like 10 minutes and then you're done with it. This is going to be one of those things that you're going to, play with a couple of bars, set it, try it out for a while, and have to keep going back in and doing this until you get what you want. And believe me, I've changed mine a million times. So just kind of so you know, Hotbar 4, 5, and 6 are here, and they're inactive. Hotbar 7 and 8 are up here, and they're inactive. Hotbar 9 and 10 are up here, and they're inactive. But you can see all you've got to do is go through that same process of clicking on them, right-click on them to make them active. Once they're active, get them into a shape you want and a size you want. Put them in the location, and then see if that works or not. Now you will notice on the settings screen, this is the cross hotbar. This is what sets up for using if you're going to do a controller. I don't use it. So what do? I right click on it and I kind of just dump it over here to get it out of my way. Like I said, the settings, there are settings for this that I don't, because I don't use it, I don't know about. But you can go back through each element. You can move your experience bar around, move what's called the parameter bar, which shows your health and mana around. Your progress bar is your cast bar. Move that around. Everything else, like on the screen, you can just try to move it in different locations, different sizes. There are 2 other bars that get a little more involved. So the first one is what is called the target bar. And the reason is because you can have your target bar as one thing, or let's see. Should we say? Yeah, it doesn't matter. We can save. On my screen, what I have done is I have split the target bar into 3 pieces. I have target bar hit points, target bar status, and target bar the progress bar. Now how you do that is you select the target bar and you go to UI element settings. And so first there's the size, but you'll see this. Display target info independently. If you click this, it splits it into 3 pieces, which is exactly what I have. So your target info HP is what shows the hit points of the monster you're fighting. So I put this at the very top. Then you have your target info. Okay, let's hit save so I can select the other one here. So you have your target info status. This is what shows all the buffs and debuffs. So I have this kind of like, you know, a little bit encroaching into the HP bar up at the top of the screen. And then the last bar, we got to get this other one out of the way, is called the progress bar. This is the monster's cast bar. You will want to probably put this somewhere on your screen where it's like right in your face. Now what I do is the box that's called the enmity list. This is the monsters list, the monsters you're fighting. I typically have this somewhere around here on my screen, so it's not directly in front of my face, but it's closer than the, you know, the far edges. And then I like to put the spell bar right above it, so that way it's always kind of within my peripheral vision of, is what I'm targeting casting something, and then I can see the cast time. But whatever you end up doing with this, I do recommend you put this like somewhere very, very visible, because that's what gives you the opportunity to either dodge it or, you know, in the cases that there's no ground effect, or a lot of the, you know, things that are interruptible, if you have a stun or spell interrupt that actually works against that, that's when you need to know the cast time. The other bar that has a split is status info. So this is your own personal status info. So if I go to, just select one of these. Currently you've got display as a single element, display element into 3 groups, or display into 4 groups. I keep it display into 3 groups. So it's got enhancements, conditional enhancements, and enfeeblements. Let me back out of this and I'll show you what that looks like on my screen. So let's eat some food. Or no, I'll just I need to do this anyway. We'll set the actions. Okay. So what I have is enhancements are here. I'm sorry. This is status info other. And then there's status info enhancements and status info enfeeblements. So other is basically long-term buffs, you know, hour-long buffs. Food counts as an other. Short-term buffs come up under the enhancements. So if you would go in, like if I hit Raging Strikes, that's going to show up as a short-term buff. And then debuffs for me would show up here. Out of all 3 of those, you're going to want, this is probably the least important. You're going to want to know your short-term buffs for when you're in combat. And you are going to want to have knowledge of your debuffs, you know, for cleansing, or just to know, like, okay, you know, I'm blinded or I'm poisoned or whatever. So you're going to want to have this stuff somewhere on your screen. I split it apart specifically just so I know, you know, what I'm looking at, because you could, if you throw them all together, it gets too confusing for me. But So once again, you can let's go to 2. You can move them around. You can change the element size, and then which I have mine, I think, pretty much blown up. Let's see, if I go to 1, yes, and I select, let's select enhancements and see what I did to it. So my enhancements is set to 200% size. So I needed to make that pretty big in order to actually see it. So those settings get you basically the element itself. Now there are, other than size and shape, there are a bunch of other things you can do. And these are all underneath character configuration. And then you go down and you go to Hotbar Settings. So now you've got some of the settings for like the numbers. This one, display the hotbar numbers. If you hit that, you notice how now I've got like the hotbar numbers on the outsides. I don't use that, but some people do, because you can swap between which hotbar is active by like using control keys, I'm pretty sure. I'm a clicker, so I don't use that. This is just once again showing all the different, orientations, and then there's some settings for your pet bar. Now, the most important thing is sharing. And you see, like, here's settings for like the cross hotbar, which I don't use. There's a whole thing. There's a whole list of general settings for the cross hotbar, which I don't even have it enabled. Sharing is critically important. And you need to go bar by bar. There are 10 hotbars that you can set the sharing for. So what does sharing mean? Close window, yes. Whatever I changed, don't save that. Okay. Sharing means when you change classes, does the bar change? So are the bars specific to each class, or are they specific, or are they general across the character? So if I go into, let's say I change to mage. So if you watch, so let's start here. So this is hotbar 1, 2, 1, 2, and this is actually 4 for me. Okay. You notice all of these changed. So all of these for me are specific to that class. And you notice I haven't done anything with mage. Okay. Now let's look over here. All of these stayed the same. So if you go into character configuration, so you'll see for me that hotbars 1, 2, 3, and 4, which on my screen, it's this hotbar, this hotbar, this hotbar, and this hotbar are specific to the class. And hotbar 8 is not shared, which is this hotbar right here. So this is, all of these buttons is basically free for me to change for each class the way that I want it. Hotbar 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10, which is these buttons here, and then this block of buttons down here, these are general. These stay the same. And pretty much if you look at the buttons that I have on here, things like housing and my chocobo bag and my mounts and my pets and my teleports and my adventure plates and portraits, my emotes, of course, all of these are the same because none of this is affected by any of the classes. Otherwise, if you can do anything you want to here. If you want to make all of these specific to every single class, you can, but then of course you have to reset them to every single class, and drag all the buttons down again. I have it set the way I do because this is the way. These are the buttons, like, these are basically kind of like what I call my dungeon buttons. So these are to do, the countdown, to set the waymarks, marking a target, doing a ready check. I don't need to have a different ready check button for every single class. So that's how you end up setting the buttons. Now, of course, you can also swap between your HUD layouts. I only have one HUD layout. However, you can have up to 4 HUD layouts. And what a lot of people will do is they will have one HUD layout for what I would call, combat. And they're going to have a lot of what I have down here, and probably like this stuff here for being in a dungeon. Then they might have another HUD layout. They might use HUD layout 3, and they've got this for crafting, and they'll have maybe a different. Maybe this is smaller, maybe it's bigger, whatever, and maybe they don't have all of this stuff over here. Or maybe they've got a layout where, they basically, it's very, very clean. What a lot of people like to do is set up something, let's go to like 4, and they'll like take, all their buttons and, kind of like put them way at the bottom, or maybe put them, off to the side of the screen or something. And, do something like that. Okay, save. And, and push everything like out so you have this very, very clean look. And it's, kind of what they use when they're walking around town, or if they're doing, RP, and they may only have like a set of buttons that's like all of the different emotes. So there are things that you can do, as far as that goes. The only other thing I'll show you here with this part of it is you can copy one HUD layout to another. For instance, you can copy, if you want to copy, let's say you want to copy 1 to 2. If you hit the settings button up on next to the HUD layout numbers, it brings up the copy screen. So if you select 1 and you select 2 and hit execute, it will copy 1 onto 2. It says copy layout 1 to slot 2. You hit OK. So now if I'm on 2, you'll notice this looks like my screen. All right. So now I'm going to go back to 2, and I'm going to hit default all. And that's going to reset it back to 0. Actually, I'm going to do that for all of them. I'm not going to do it to 1, obviously. Oh, that's right. Save. You always have to hit save. Okay. So the final part of this, there is a way to set keybinds to your button positions. So if you go under System, once again go to, oh no, and it's not character configuration, it's keybind. So if you go in here, if you go under, these are the standard keybinds for all this stuff. But if you go under Hotbar, normally the 1 through 9 keys, is what activates for the current Hotbar, the slots for the people who, I call it play piano, who use use the keyboard to hit all the buttons. Like I said, I'm a clicker. I don't do that, but that's what a lot of people do. So this is all the settings. But if you notice, if you go down to Hotbar 3, you'll notice from slot 7 to slot 12 that in my settings it's set to numpad 1 through 6. Now, why is it for me is it set to numpad 1 through 6? Well, I have one of those mice with buttons on the side of it, and my buttons are set to be the numpad buttons. So if I hit my 1 on the side of my mouse, it's going to hit sprint. If you see this little box with the dots in it, that means that it's a keybind. So there we go. So if I hit 4, that gets me Peloton. Now the other ones don't do any, are not going to do anything because I don't have a target. But this is how I've mapped my mouse buttons to the hotbar, so that I can use them and therefore hit the buttons that way instead of using instead of either clicking on them or doing the 1 2 3 4 5 thing. So I think that's everything. Like I said, you're not gonna fix your HUD in one day, and you're probably going to change things, move things around, and then move them again. Let's see. Let me look at my notes here. Oh, there was one last. Okay, there was one last thing. Okay. In HUD layout, if you notice, there are 3 sections here. So if you hit System, it turns off all of the boxes that you saw. These are what they call the system boxes. If you hit Hotbars, it turns off. When I say turns off, it makes it so you are not editing them. It kind of just gets them off your screen. That does all of the Hotbars. Duty does all of the duty ones. I have the duty action down here. The one problem with this is the boxes that you want to move around for something like Crystalline Conflict. They do not show up on this screen unless you are in Crystalline Conflict. So for those elements, you have to enter into Crystalline Conflict or enter into Frontline And then I would recommend turning off these other things, and then you will see whatever boxes are left on your screen are the ones for that specific duty. And then you can move them around. So you may have to play with that. You may have to go into a frontline and open up this menu in order to move some of those elements. Because like in frontline, or like in Crystalline Conflict, you'll have like kind of the map, and then you'll have like a bar at the top, which is like the overall status. You'll notice you don't see those elements here. So you will have to do that for those specific things. Otherwise, now dungeons and raids are not too much of a problem, because you do have party list, you do have alliance list 1 and alliance list 2. So this is going to give you all of your, party and raid information, and you still have your target information of whatever you're targeting yourself. So that gets you everything that you want to know for 98% of the game. PvP has to be the one kind of thing hanging out there in the wind. So, well, I hoped that made some sense. I know it was kind of rambling, and I apologize for that. But like I said, this is something that you could kind of go on for, eons and eons about. But my recommendation is just to start small. Start with an idea of what you want to do. If you want to do something like this, or maybe only put one box over here, and moving these specific elements around. Just move a couple elements a day, and or make them changes and see, is that what you really like or not? Because like I said, I had to come back in and move things around, and I continue to play with it. Every single time I take one of my lower level characters and they learn something like the bard music bar here. Of course, it never puts it in the place that I want to. It dumps it somewhere like up on the screen. So I end up, moving mine around too. So thanks, Zelcan. Let's see, where is Salute? Oh, I think I put this. Oh, there we go. Please do all the things. Leave a like, subscribe. If you got any comments, questions, recommendations, please leave them in the comment section. I will get to them as soon as I can. And otherwise, have a great day.